Just some other quick little green drink things. We are in our 12th season of Green Drink, so 12 years of presenting environmental and green topics on our region. So tonight we're thanking our sponsors for Green Drinks, which include Save the Dunes and Michigan City's Sustainability Commission, plus supported by 219 Green Connect. And this month's guest hosts are 95.1 FM and AM and 1420 WIMS, the radio station, Alliance for the Great Lakes, LaPorte County Solid Waste District, and the Great Michigan City Green Clean. So without further ado, I'm really excited tonight to present my Reduce and Refuse Northwest Indiana Has a Plastic Problem presentation. Let me share my screen. And then you guys can let me know if you see everything. always my issue. Come on. All right, can we see this?
Yep, looks good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about a surmounting problem that's happening in Northwest Indiana, which is plastic pollution. The topic feels relevant not only for us interested in sustainability, but for all of us interested in pollution prevention, especially here in our backyard. And during this hour-long presentation, if I take my time, we are going to share data and findings and some regional updates, including a few current advocacy initiatives around plastics and ways you can reduce and refuse plastics in your everyday life. So I'll start with a brief history of Save the Dunes. In June 1952, Dorothy Buell and a group of local women came together at Dorothy's home right here in Ogden Dunes. Together, they formed the Save the Dunes Council in order to protect the remaining untouched dunes along the southern tip of Lake Michigan in Northwest Indiana from disappearing beneath harbors, steel mills, and unchecked development. Save the Dunes is largely credited for establishing the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, now recognized as a national park and the only national park in Indiana. Today, Save the Dunes continues to protect and advocate for the Indiana Dunes, Lake Michigan, and all of the surrounding natural areas for the health and vitality of the environment and the people who live, work, and recreate in Northwest Indiana. Save the Dunes has had a historic commitment to water pollution prevention, and traditionally that refers to industry pollution events and exceedances. But the reality is here. Northwest Indiana is polluted with plastic. There is plenty of visual and scientific evidence that our beaches, green spaces, and even our bodies have been polluted with plastics. Northwest Indiana has 45 miles of shoreline on the Great Lake of Lake Michigan, but just 15 shoreline miles are made up of beaches with public access. And I don't know about you. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm still seeing the history of Save the Dunes slide. Is that the one that you're on?
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, wait, here, let's go. Sorry. One
Okay.
more. Wait, I didn't. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. So I spend a lot of time at the beach this summer, and I couldn't help but notice that as much as there are beach rocks and beach glass and driftwood on the beach, there's also garbage and predominantly plastic. I don't know if it's just because my eye has been trained to look out for it now, or if it really is just that much more. But with all-time high visitations to our area, population increases, lack of accountability, rollbacks on recycling, and more plastic pollution, it's that more and more that plastic pollution is a problem at the top of our minds here at Save the Dunes. Plastics were definitely not a threat on the list of threats when our organization was founded 72 years ago, but the reality is that today this is definitely one of our biggest threats. Okay, plastic pollution, a forever problem. Only 5 to 6% of plastics are actually recycled in the United States, and we must address the general confusion and misconception and accessibility around doing the right thing when it comes to recycling. Every piece of plastic ever made still exists. And plastics don't rot or disintegrate. They just break apart into smaller and smaller pieces, also known as microplastics. Almost all plastic is made from chemicals that come from the production of planet-warming fossil fuels. So we can't talk about a greener planet or sustainable energy or sustainable answers without addressing the plastic problem that we have. One of the things with recycling, especially, is the general confusion around what can be recycled and how things are recycled. So we really have to deal with the idea that greenwashing is also a reality, and a lot of companies will say that things are made from recycled plastics to kind of take away the accountability that they're still making plastic by saying it's made from recycled plastics. Or you may see compostable plastics like single-use plastic forks and knives that are labeled as compostable PLA, which is just another form of plastic. Okay. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about some findings from the Alliance for the Great Lakes, which is a partner that we work really closely with here in the Great Lakes Basin. So in 2024, Alliance for the Great Lakes analyzed data collected from more than 14,000 adopted beach cleanups over the past 20 years, and the analysis revealed some alarming and consistent patterns. Over 86% of the litter collected on Great Lakes beaches is composed either partially or fully of plastic. And in the environment, plastic never goes away. Like we said, it just breaks down further and further into microplastics that easily make their way into Great Lakes, which is a source of drinking water for 40 million people. Much of the litter is from single-use items that were once used and left behind, which contain plastic. And then specifically plastics on our beaches. So the Rochester Institute of Technology estimates that each year over 22 million pounds of plastic go into our Great Lakes. This is an alarming number. This, like we said, is not only a place where drinking water comes from, but where recreating happens, where natural life lives. All of these things that make up the really important ecosystem of Northwest Indiana. So the building blocks of plastic are toxic in their own right. And once in the water, plastic fragments absorb toxic chemicals and can harbor potentially dangerous microbes. Again, another specific to our area, we already are coexisting on our shoreline with heavy industry. So we know that there is a higher likely that the water that this microplastic is in is absorbing the toxins already in the water, just compounding on the problem. And there's also multiple sources of the reasons of why this plastic gets to the beach. So there must be multiple approaches to clean it up. Definitely, we know that there's plastic pollution coming from other areas in the Great Lakes region, from industry, from, things like that, from just people recreating and leaving things behind. This photo here on this slide was just me walking on the beach for about 25 minutes picking things up. And it seems like, people just leave things behind. So a really great suggestion for this and how kind of you can start on your journey to be more aware of the problem so you can be better involved in helping solve the problem is to volunteer or complete good deeds by picking up plastics you find along the beach or when you're recreating. And always remember to recreate responsibly and don't bring plastics, and be extremely mindful of your waste in green spaces. A fun fact I love to share on this portion is if you are a little picking up litter bug like myself at the Indiana Dunes State Park, you can register to be a volunteer and clock or, check your hours that you're out walking the beach picking up garbage as volunteer hours. Even when you're out on the trails, the old nature center naturalist Marie, she encouraged me one time when I was signing up to be a volunteer. She said, even if you go out looking and like the intention to pick up plastic is there, even if you don't find any, you could still clock your hours that you intended to pick it up if you found it. And at the state park, when you clock 40 hours of volunteer time, you are given a annual state park entrance pass. So it's a little incentive to do something good. And now I realize that my slides are out of order, so I have a couple other things on the Alliance findings. No, I think I get. Thank you. Okay, so the reality of regional recycling. When we know this is a problem, we wonder what our local municipalities and governments can do to help. A lot of conversation is swirling around who should be responsible for this problem. I know I've had some conversations with folks who really feel like it's big corporations and, the federal government's, job to put restrictions and make changes to how much plastic is being produced. But we also have to take steps both regionally and in our own lives. So unfortunately, some areas here in Northwest Indiana, including Hobart and Portage, have stopped their curbside recycling programs in favor for budget cuts. In many municipal sustainability commissions, including Michigan City Highland Neighbors for Sustainability and the Environmental Sustainability Commission of Porter, are trying to counteract some of the decisions to remove community-based things like recycling programs by encouraging other green movements to take foot in these areas. So I do want to also share some good recycling news and share that things are happening and things are moving in our area. And for every kind of bad piece of information we might hear about plastic pollution or recycling rollbacks, there's also good things happening. So as I mentioned before, Michigan City and Highland are all working to create sustainability commissions and Porter as well. So if you live in any of those areas, I highly recommend checking out their websites and seeing what they're doing and how you can get involved. But also Michigan City and Valparaiso have launched composting programs, which help divert waste from landfills, because the reality is that our plastic pollution problem is compounded by other waste production things. So even though composting is not about plastic, it will keep more things out of our landfills. So participating can be a good start to reframe and understand your own waste and consumptions. Composting could start, in your kitchen, just collecting scraps and putting them out I know Michigan City's picks up in tandem to your garbage. You can check it out on their website and they tell you which day your garbage gets picked up and then which day they would pick up your composting. And Valparaiso is doing their pickup at their farmers market, but they also have a really robust program for community involvement and sharing that compost and picking up mulch. So their website has a lot of great information on that as well. Porter County has a really robust recycling program offering curbside and drop-off options for hard to recycle items, some including plastic bags and films, which are not recyclable curbside, but they do have programs for that if you go down to I think their location is in Valparaiso as well. And maybe if you live in an area like Hobart or Portage that's having a rollback and you're really committed to continuing to recycle, you got to go out of your way maybe to go recycle things, but it can feel worthwhile. So, and then another project that Save the Dunes completed just this year was a community-based advanced recycling project in collaboration with a company called Next Tracks, where we collected 1,000 pounds of plastic film and bags from community members across all 3 counties. And we had a year to do it, and we collected over our goal in just 9 months. So, the initiatives are there, groups making efforts are there, and it's really just kind of about being inspired and seeing where you can go next. Here are some photos from the recycling project, because I was really surprised that not only the involvement from community members wanting to get involved, but what I thought was really nice is that something comes out of this recycling effort. Because one of the kind of greenwashed um, languages around recycling is that, oh, you're recycling it and it's going to do good. But the reality is that only 5 to 6% of plastics get recycled. But in this project, all of the plastic got collected and returned back to grocery stores that have big compactors for with Next Tracks, and then we're getting a recycled plastic bench in exchange. So that action, effort, and an outcome exchange is really high. We get to participate, we get to come together as a community, and then we get something great in return that we can all enjoy. So this is a picture of what the benches look like from Next Tracks, and ours is going to be placed in the pollinator garden here on the property of the Barker House where Save the Dunes worked. So yeah, so that was the thing. We noticed that a lot of people were making this plastic, and it really got us thinking about ways that we can reduce and refuse plastics, not just recycle them, because we know that recycling isn't the be all end all answer. Okay, now I'm going to share some advocacy around plastics, because ultimately the most effective way to reduce plastic pollution is to reduce the production of single-use plastics and to hold producers responsible for the waste that their products generate. Best case scenario, we would have federal regulations and laws around how much plastic can be made, what's done with what's made, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a good future for this if we can all get together and fight for wanting to fix this problem. So here are two examples of advocacy around plastic that are currently happening. So we've got the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act of 2023, which was presented by Rep. Huffman, a United States congressman, who introduced this House Bill 6053, which is a bill to amend the Solid Waste Disposal Act to reduce the production and use of certain single-use plastic products and packaging, to improve the responsibility of producers in the design, collection, reuse, recycling, and disposal of consumer products and packaging, to prevent pollution from consumer products and packaging from entering into the animal and human food chains. That's best case scenario, that these things don't even get out into our green spaces. And then the other one is the National Park Service Green Parks Plan, the third edition, which came out last year. And, the Park Service has a history of preserving the natural and cultural resources. So this plan is to provide a framework for the National Park Service to reduce its environmental impact at all levels of the organization. And the agency first introduced this in 2012, and now that it's on its third edition, it addresses new legislative requirements such as the Executive Order 14057 and catalyzing clean energy industries. We have some exciting news about with the Green Parks Plan too, is that Save the Dunes received a grant from the National Park Foundation to work directly with the national park here in the Indiana Dunes, working with their concessioners to rewrite their permitting around single-use plastic. So this is basically including language in their permits that encourage less single-use plastic, encourage alternatives, and to work directly with the brick and mortar vendors at the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk and West Beach to see how we can help them reach this goal, because the Green Parks Plan basically, and like the big goal is by 2032 to have no single-use plastics at any federal lands. That's a really big goal. And so we're really excited to be working directly with the park to help them reach that goal sooner than later. Oh, here, I had a whole slide about it. So this is just a little bit more about what I just explained. We're working directly with them. The project will also include public outreach, education, and signage promoting reducing single-use plastics in our national park. And we'll be celebrating this next July with a plastic-free party at West Beach. So stay tuned. We're gonna keep talking about ways to reduce plastic, and then come out next summer at the beach and celebrate with us. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do in your everyday life. So when you're reducing your single-use plastic use, remembering is always the first step. So starting a new habit like using refillable water bottles, or bringing a reusable plastic bag, or bringing a reusable cup when you go get your daily coffee, just remembering to do that is a big impact. Because if you think about it, you get a to-go cup from Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever every single day. That's 365 cups a day that just you are making. And that number can really surmount both in your own personal life and in general. So a good line to say is, if you can't reuse it, refuse it. So single-use plastic items like plastic grocery bags and other single-use plastics like utensils that you don't need, you can supplement with reusable. So something that I got really accustomed to doing is bringing my reusable water bottle along with me. Also, I have reusable utensils that I just keep in my tote bag, reusable straw. I don't go anywhere without my Save the Dunes Hydro Flask. You can also get involved, connect with the community, reach out to your local representatives, and encourage your local businesses to go plastic free. So every year in the month of July, we celebrate Plastic Free July, and Porter County actually ran a really great incentive with the businesses in Porter County to make initiatives to lessen their single-use plastic, and they promoted these businesses and like shared ways that they were making the efforts to be more sustainable and use less plastic. And of course, if there's a plastic-free alternative, consider what it would take for you to make the switch. When you look at what you're using in your everyday life, see where you kind of make the most waste at. For myself, I do this by using a really, really small garbage can, because then you can't keep filling it up, and you gotta see how much waste you make or what kind of garbage you make, and then see where you can make shifts. So maybe you buy a 12-pack of soda in plastic bottles, or you buy something that is just that's the option that it is. Like maybe that soda comes in cans. Maybe you can buy a 2-liter instead of a 12-pack. There are little small changes you can make to lessen your waste. And there are also a lot of ways that you can swap out your current single-use plastics from your day-to-day life. The reusable tote or reusable grocery bag, I think, is the easiest, especially because we've gotten just so accustomed to the convenience of them giving us a grocery bag. But I carry around my tote bag or my grocery bag. I keep it in my car. I keep it in my purse, and no matter where I go, I make sure to bring it. Shopping in bulk is also another great option to reduce your single-use plastic. There's actually a Molly Bees here in Michigan City that is a bulk shop. So if you're local to Michigan City and you're interested in trying shopping bulk to lessen your waste, definitely check them out. A reusable water bottle is an amazing start as well. Swapping home essentials for plastic-free alternatives. They make plastic-free everything nowadays. So dish soap, they sell in a solid bar. You can just, rub your sponge on and go from there. Using a bar soap over a pump soap. They even make solid shampoos and conditioners without plastic bottles. So if this isn't a topic that you kind of are interested in seeing what the possibilities are, definitely do your research. Shop at a farmer's market. This produce isn't wrapped in plastic to transport. So not only are you supporting a local economy by shopping at the farmer's market, meeting the people who are growing your food, deepening your connection to what you're eating, you're also reducing your single-use plastic use. Reusable utensils and straws. I think that this is kind of hand in hand with the water bottle and the tote bag. If you bring it with you, you never need those single-use items. You have it, you can refuse it, but it is really, like I said, about remembering as well. And then finally, cooking and eating at home to avoid excess waste, like takeout containers. Now, this might kind of sound funny and be kind of an obvious answer, but it's it's really true. If you don't go out to eat and take things to go, you don't make takeout containers, or or order takeout that has to be packed up and given to you in possibly styrofoam, which is worse than plastic. Um, so I do want to encourage us here that, making changes to our plastic consumption is not about being perfect. It's about making small changes. We are all in different places on our journey, and we all have different possibilities and options. This is a quote from Julia Prince Ruiz, the founder of Plastic Free July. And then I'd also like to encourage us to remember that sustainable options may not be the most obvious or most accessible. So we do our best not to be critical or judge why people have not been able to make these changes, and support and applaud those who are making efforts to live more sustainably in Northwest Indiana. Um, Here is a link, links, resources, and references that I really want to share with you, because I only touched very on the top of these efforts in our area, but Porter, LaPorte, and Lake County all have great recycling information on their website. And I think that one of these things too is sort of having community conversations. Like, if you're making efforts to be more sustainable and use less plastic, who can you talk to on your block or in your school group or in your at your job, like coworkers? How can we encourage each other? How can we create being sustainable and using less plastic as a community effort, not just it's all on us to fix it or it's all on someone else to fix it. We're all in it together. So Alliance for the Great Lakes has a great plastic free resource. They've got endless options, ideas about how to lessen your single-use plastic use. Oh, also, this link information on the invention and inflation of single-use plastics is pretty interesting, because we didn't have single-use plastics 60 years ago. They're a really new invention, and because we've made so much waste in such a short period of time, I have hope that we can stop using single-use plastics, because we did not use them so short ago, and we have to look to the past to get answers for the future. And then please feel free to read the National Parks Green Park Plan Initiative. It really outlines how they're making these moves, what they're encouraging both parks as vendors and employees, but also guests to national park properties. So thank you. Please, if you're not already following Save the Dunes on Instagram and Facebook, we post every day the history of Save the Dunes and the work that we're doing and how you can get involved, or what's regionally happening advocacy wise in Northwest Indiana. And then also please sign up for our newsletter. That's right into your inbox, just information about what we're doing and how you can get involved as well. So that's my presentation, but I am really excited to have a conversation with folks and answer any questions. I know, like I said, this is very skimming the surface. This is a passion of mine, so I can talk on it for hours. So we can open it up to the chat or to the questions.
Excellent. Amazing presentation, Em. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. And once again, just want to invite people, if you have questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat or in the comments over on Facebook. We have one question and a couple of comments. So Matt was asking where the bulk item store is in Michigan City.
It is on 20 and 421 Franklin by the TJ Maxx and the Dollar General and the Ulta and PetSmart. It's in that strip mall. It is on the west side.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Valerie mentioned you can also take your own containers to restaurants and take your leftovers home. which I did not know you could do that.
I love that idea. Valerie, thanks so much for bringing that back up. That was something I was doing pre-pandemic. And then that's another conversation about how single-use plastics kind of got a boost is that when the pandemic, everything went single use. They were not refilling your cup at your coffee shop. They were not taking all that stuff. So now I think we're back to being able to make those asks of places. So definitely encourage keeping a Tupperware also in your in your car. That I to be the reusable person is to just be this to carrying around as many cups and things as you can. But you're not making any waste, so it's worth it.
Absolutely. Kathy mentioned that there is a Plastic Reduction Alliance of Northwest Indiana that just started meeting at Valparaiso University. So I guess they have a Facebook page. Encourage people to check them out.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think that's a perfect example of community involvement. If this is something that your heart is in and you want to see things change about, the more people that get behind the movement, the easier we'll have advocating for legislation or better municipality movements in reducing single-use plastic waste. So I'm gonna that I like it. I think that or the about the Northwest Indiana one. I tried to go one time and I could not find it at Valpo University. So please send me directions to go. I will happily attend.
Absolutely. And you know me, I carry my my plastic bag and a plush that's attached to my purse, so literally cannot forget it. And every single time I pull it out, someone like has to talk to me about it. I'm like, yes, let me tell you all about how easy this is. And
Yes. Yes, conversations are, I think, can go a long way. Um, the convenience of single-use plastics is definitely compounded by it just kind of being out of sight, out of mind, right? Like you use single-use plastics, you throw it away, you don't think about it again. But plastic, every single piece of plastic ever made is still here. So every time you think you threw your cup away, you actually were just throwing it into one place and for it to go to another place. Um, so really not using them is the best answer. Both for our the health of ourselves and for our region. Yeah, Monica, go ahead.
Turning my audio on. So I guess I want to ask what people think about this as a potential ally. You seem to have some breweries in your community, and I come from the people of Anheuser-Busch. Even though Belgians own it now, Anheuser-Busch is still a fixture in our state. And I found out that Anheuser-Busch has the ability to almost stop on a dime and close down a production line and turn it into canned water in the event of a massive emergency in St. Louis, which could happen because they have lots of old nuclear waste being stored around St. Louis. And so I wonder if instead of pondering nuclear catastrophe, if some of the smaller breweries might start canning water. And like it could even be a kind of a way of promoting all of you in your activities, because even my book group has been talking a lot about water this spring, and people who are having health problems are starting to wonder, you know, what is it that's wrong in my system that needs to be righted and that nobody seems to be able to solve. So I've been, I have a filtration system in my house that it's just right next to my kitchen faucet. And I find it really, I use it totally all the time. All my
Yeah.
company adjusts to it and uses it. And so I'm just wondering about ways to improve what and how we think about water and who can help us with it. And I think the brewers might be able to help us with it a little bit. And also,
It's
I
a,
like what you're saying about farmers markets where people can drop stuff off, because I really think that is a very good idea.
yeah, Valparaiso has a great their composting system is at the farmers market, which just makes sense because if you normalize going to the farmers market once a week, you kind of make it your again, that's going back to old time things, right? The convenience of going to the grocery store wasn't a thing 100 years ago. You had to make the intentions to go out and get your food in a really specific way. So
Yeah.
I think I think the intentionality is definitely a big proponent of the answer that we will all find. And I think a conversation with brewers would be a really nice conversation also because they don't package beer in plastic. So
Exactly.
they're a little already a little bit of ahead of the game that they're not using plastics. They're using either glass or aluminum, sometimes refillable aluminums. I've been to breweries that have like bring your growler back and refill
Yep.
it. So I think they're kind of on the beat. I agree with you a little bit more than some other places.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Also,
you.
Matt mentioned in the comments that LaPorte Solid Waste District has a drop off for packaging styrofoam near the LaPorte
Oh,
Fairgrounds.
okay.
So that's a great resource
We will
as well.
add that onto our resource list of alternatives for disposal. And, the conversation around that goes back to convenience. Is it a lot easier to throw it in your bin and walk away? Absolutely. Maybe you don't want to drive out of your way, but you save it until the day you are heading to LaPorte or the day you are heading to Valpo or Porter, or if those are out of your way, you make your efforts to be a little bit more intentional with it. So. Yeah.
I don't see anything else in the chat or in the comments. Last call for
Okay.
questions before we move on to our closing remarks.
Okay. Well, I do want to make a couple of green drinks announcements. So thank you all for attending tonight and being so engaged in the presentation. Next month's green drinks presentation, which will be happening on October 3rd, we will welcome Dane Carlson, local landscape artist, to present his NIPSCO Power Plant Reimagined. So he is going to share his vision for the future of the space that the NIPSCO power plant here in Michigan City currently is, where that's located, because their decommission is by 2030, I believe. So that's again coming sooner than later. So please join us, invite your friends and family to hear about a little future casting for our area in terms of environmentalism. And then for November, we will welcome Kathy Sipple of or the Northwest Indiana Region Resiliency, which is an umbrella sort of organizing across all three counties in the Lake Michigan watershed as well. And for Save the Dunes, we've got some really fun events coming up, both in person and online. So just 10 short days away, we will be having our fall fundraiser, the Monarch Music Fest. And that's happening here in Michigan City at the gorgeous Brewery Lodge. Tickets are available on our website. We will be celebrating the commute of the monarch butterfly from our region back to its winter nesting grounds in Mexico with a fiesta taco bar and themed margaritas. So grab some friends, it's a family friendly event. So feel free to invite whomever and come out and enjoy the day with us. And then we were also continuing our series on coastal resiliency. So those will be presented by Harshini, our advocacy coordinator. The next one will actually be here at the Barker House in Michigan City on September 21st, I believe it is. 20th. It's a Friday, September 20th, starting at 4:30. And that's going to be presenting on recreating responsibly. So please feel free to join us for those events. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Again, please feel free to share this recording with your whole network, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.